stuff in the way.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for braving the rain.
So I guess, Dan, the first thing I'd like to ask you is what...
I love this, by the way. This is great.
This is like our living room, right?
This might be the weirdest thing I've ever done in my life. This little side stage. And
that's saying something.
Why haven't I've been like trying to find a comfortable chair all day, and these have just been sitting here. I've been over there on this stupid piano bench. What was I thinking? Sorry. No. Let's get serious.
So, so what are we going to experience tonight? What are we going to hear? What are all these instruments and things on stage?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, the first thing we're going to do is this handout that you might have found on your chair. And we're going to start a band. And it's our first show, so don't get, it's cool. But it's like a list of instructions, so we won't use any of this like multiple. You could like buy a house with all of this gear. But we're not going to use any of it. And then the second piece is going to use your phones. Well, I guess the first two pieces use your phones. But if you haven't already downloaded, I know we just told you to turn your phones off, but that was just like a joke. So the second piece requires an app. It's called Dan Decon. And it's free for all formats of phones, except for Windows phones, but let's get real. So if you could download that, that'd be great, since all the sound is going to be coming exclusively from the phones. And then the third piece will use these two MIDI-controlled player pianos and that junk on the table. So these Disclaviers, where did you start working with those, or when did you start working with those? I guess in 2009, I was at a studio in Montana, and I was just, I was on tour. It was 2007, and I was on my first tour where I didn't eat only beans and rice cakes. It was the first tour where people were going to shows, and it was the first show booked on the tour, and it was in Whitefish, Montana. And it was the first time I ever got a guarantee. And I was like, we got to do this show. They're guaranteeing us money. That's crazy. These people are insane. So we went, and they were also you can also record in our studio. And at the time, that was the least appealing thing to me in the world. I just used to record by myself in my room. And then we got to the studio, and it was this amazing, amazing facility. And I felt like such a jackass because I didn't have anything to record. And then I saw they had this piano, and I was like, you're telling me I can hook my computer up to it and I'll play whatever I want? And he was like, yes. So I sort of started writing my second album, Bromst, almost entirely with that concept in mind, without ever touching one. So it was really stupid. It would be like writing music for violin without ever seeing a violin and then being like, play this. And they'd be like, well, this is not at all violin music. So that's exactly what happened. We got there, and it was just I was trying to play the same note. I was pretending that the piano was a computer, but it's obviously not a computer. It's the farthest thing from a computer. Even though it has a little tiny computer inside of it, it still has to work within the physical limitations of a regular piano. Do you know what I mean? So that's why we got two.
Right, okay. Two's better than one.
Two's always better than one.
And that's kind of one of the interesting things about it is that you can do things with the computer attached to the Disclavier that a human could never do.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It sounds, I think, especially weird because it doesn't sound like a piano at times because it's not being played like a piano would be played, and it's being played in a very non-human way. So it has this synthesizer quality. I remember when Al was teching it earlier, he kept trying to turn it down with the volume knob. But you can't do that because it's a piano and they don't have volume knobs. But that's why I really like sounds that sound like they shouldn't be made. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like these pianos are it's crazy to think that they're these insanely, these beastly instruments that can do basically anything and sound completely insane, but they're in hotel lobbies and movie theaters to play Chopin and shit. So I've always wanted to release and they take floppy disks. That's the best part, 3.5-inch floppy disks. They're the only thing that still takes those. I'm sure there's some manufacturer that's please never stop making these pianos. And you can fit tens and tens of thousands of hours of MIDI on a floppy disk. And I've always wanted to release like a map with a floppy disk of like all the disc claviers like in public places, like at like the, I don't know, the rest stop in Milwaukee at this exit, or like the Radisson Hotel in Tampa.
I like that. That's
and
great.
Sell these discs that would have like just chaos on them, and it would start with like 2 minutes of silence, so you could like put the disc in, load it, and then walk away, and then just be like. But I haven't done it yet, so.
Soon, I hope. Yeah.
In reality, though, how the hell would I compile this map? I'd have to just be like, do you have one? Oh, no, okay. Hello, do you have one? No, oh, all right.
You mentioned having one in your house really limits, like, if you ever wanted to move, like, you have two, so if you ever wanted to go anywhere, you're kind of, it's like having a boat or something.
It's like having two shitty boats. And I'm moving out of my studio in August, and I'm dreading. We also like used to have a much larger door, but we sealed it up. So now I'm gonna like smash a hole through the wall to get the piano out. But I bought them off Craigslist because people, once they buy them, just they never use them. Like every single one, the listing is like, I bought this piano when I was stoned and I'm rich and I don't understand how money works and I hate it now and take this piano out of my life. And the first one we bought, it was $1,000. And within like a couple of days, like some of the solenoids burned out. And I was like, oh no, what did we do? And we had like a technician come, and it burned out because it was full of Fruit Loops.
Does that happen a lot? Just not the Fruit Loops, but the solenoids?
They do burn out. The Fruit Loops is a rare occasion, but they do burn out like anything. You can't push it too hard, and I try to. So we've actually contacted Yamaha, and we're like, tell us the limitations, and they don't really know them because they're not. A lot of people don't use them in this capacity. It's more to just be like, yeah, I can't play piano, but I love hearing piano music, and I hate CDs, so I bought a piano.
Nice.
This is going much better than I thought it was.
And you also write music for other ensembles, and I think I read that you were working on some orchestra music at some point, and doing things that are really outside of what people know you for, your electronic music. And yeah, are you working on anything like that right now?
I don't think so. No, I tend to do it like I just finished mixing a record, and I would like to start getting back into that. I'm in the process of getting these mechanical drums built to complement the piano, and I think I'm going to focus a lot on mechanical music. And I don't know. I mean, I really like working on the orchestral stuff, but it's such an insane amount of time and effort for like one performance that I feel like I'm trying to play this like long game where it's like I can only really tour for like 5 more years before like my entire body just dies. So I'm probably gonna focus on that and then be like, but do you want to like check out my symphonies now? I can just sit in the audience with you. It'll be great. The music might not be so good, but please keep paying me. I'm going to talk like that in 5 years. Okay. That was my impersonation of me. Hi, this is my voice. I'm sorry. I always wanted to, like before I became like known or whatever, to like pick one city, like let's say like Houston. And when I was like playing house shows, and whenever I'd go to that one city, I'd only talk in this voice. And I'd probably like make friends there, and I'd play with the same promoter, and then like years later, I'd be like, "Hey, thanks for setting up the show." That's not my real voice. So anyway, but I didn't do that either. This is a list of things that I'm never going to do or never have done.
Nice. I guess at this point, I want to ask you about your what is your sort of process for writing music. I think I heard you say something yesterday about how you kind of think in terms of like one long note or like one sort of long piece that you're working on at a time.
Ever since I started using Ableton a couple of years ago, and discovered like MIDI filters, it kind of like blew my mind. So I do tend to start with one. I mean, it depends. Like sometimes I'll have like a melody in my head and I'll try to like figure out how to get it out, or I'll just be riffing on the computer. But with something like this, like the process for, I think each of the pieces tonight started just with like one idea and trying to like manipulate it in as many ways as possible before it became no longer that idea and then going off on that tangent there.
And I think it's pretty interesting too. I was looking at a video of you in your studio, and you were talking about how your studio is kind of more of an art studio, and then it is like sort of a recording studio or a music studio that you would sort of think of in that traditional way. Just sort of it's a little bit sparser, and you just have your like boxes everywhere. And talk about that a little bit, how that helps you.
Well, it's a real mixed-use space. So like we use it as like where we practice or where we'll build that table or try out the new lighting pattern. So like it's constantly changing. The one room that doesn't change is like this soundproof room that I guess some people find it disturbing when you go into a room and there's no reverb at all. You just hear the sound of your own voice and the ringing in your head and like your nervous system and shit. And also people find it very disturbing when, like we recorded most of my album America in that room. And it was like mainly students from Peabody that we hadn't really met before. And they were coming to this like boarded up building at like 9 a.m. in like a formerly sketchy part of Baltimore. And we'd just be like bringing them through this like dark cavern into this soundproof room. And they were like, why am I here? Are you really, this is your recording music? Because there's like no mixer or anything. It was just me and my friend Chester. And we'd be like, yes, just sing. Sing for us now. We'll be in the other room. No one will be able to hear you singing. Sing. That's Chester. Chester talks like that.
It worked out really well. Yeah, it's a beautiful album.
But I don't know. I guess, and I never really thought of it as a recording studio because when you go to a recording studio, it's like this is like this. I got this at Guitar Center on discount. It's a pretty sick board, and it's got like all these nice things in it that I don't know how to use. And since I didn't really like know how to record, I didn't think about it that way. So with this last record that I recorded myself, I kind of relearned the process and tried to do it in like this quote unquote real way. So I guess I do kind of think of it as a studio now, but still there's no mixer, and it's very much I don't know, I just think about it more as like, when like you go to like a painting studio, you wouldn't expect like, oh, this is right. I guess some people make their own paints. So yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I don't make paint though, so it's not really a painting studio either. And I don't do any painting in there.
No, you don't grind your pigment or anything like that.
I always forget to breathe when I'm doing an interview, and then by the time I'm done talking, I'm just like, don't stop hyperventilating. Don't stop hyperventilating.
Well, so I wondered, a lot of your music to me sounds like you really focus on real extremes of layering, like in sort of the negative way and towards the positive end. So you get these like really dense things happening, but then these really beautiful, minimal, sparse kind of things happening. And do you think sort of structurally about when you're writing first, or do you work melodically and then the structure comes later?
It really depends piece to piece, but I do think it's a lot more of the structure. Like I'll sit on an idea for as long as I think it can go, and then I'm trying to edit. Like I was listening when I was working on this new record. I was going back and listening to old pieces, and I was like, I can't believe this song is 7 minutes long. This song should be 3 minutes long. Like, what the hell am I thinking? So I'm trying to like be a bit more judgmental about the music, and rather than like this could last forever, be like, well, this could last for maybe 25 seconds. But yeah, a lot of it because I'm just listening on loop for like hours and hours and hours and hours, and sometimes it'll be like just the same 2 bars or same second, just trying to hear like where the sound, like especially with a sample, when you get a sample and you're like looping something that was never meant to be looped, you hear these artifacts, and then if you listen to it long enough, you can find out what to remove or what to add or what to accentuate. So I think that's sort of how the whole process, I think, is sort of similar to that. So then I'll listen to a song again and again and again and again and again and again and figure out like, well, this voice is missing or this isn't there, or I could add this, and I'll try putting something else on top of it and realizing that whole realm of the frequency spectrum just has nothing in it or has too much in it. I can't add there, but where can I put it? Because now that I've heard it, I can't take it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, cool.
I forgot to
Breathe, Dan.
But I think the hardest part is that once I do add something, I can't hear it without it. Do you know what I mean? Like I'll put it in, and even if it doesn't need like this second counter bass line or whatever, it's like, oh, well, now I heard that. It'd be like, making food and just putting every single ingredient on. Even if it doesn't work, you'd be like, oh, and what can I do to make that ingredient taste good? Now I need to add, if I put ketchup on my ice cream, it just sucks. So maybe French fries will make it good. Do you know what I mean?
But then you did sort of the opposite thing with the Miley Cyrus reduction, where you you just took away.
Well, they already made
where you just
the magical piece, so it wasn't very hard for me.
So
with remixes, it is fun to reduce or like to work with like, just a simple process. I don't know. I don't do a lot of remixes, but when I do, it is fun to just think about how they made the music, especially when it's not a remix, when it's someone that I know. Like if I'm remixing, like I'm working on a Future Islands remix right now, and I know those guys really well, so I keep thinking like, oh, this is like when William walked in the room and was like, Gert, that sounds great, man. So I keep trying to think about like how different it would be if like, I don't know, they made it different. I guess what everyone does when they remix. Now I'm just explaining what remixes are when you like take music and make it different. When I remix music, I like to remix it.
I get that. Yeah, cool.
Now I can cheat. I didn't know you had that list there.
Yeah, I have a little sheet of things here.
You put this here to distract me, and it worked.
It's festive holiday stuff.
Beautiful,
right? So how about audience participation and interpretive dance sort of stuff? How did that kind of make its way into your work?
Well, I guess it started, the first two times I did it were because of mistakes. So my first big show in college, this was like 2002, and I was opening for Cat Power, which was a terrible pairing. And I left a very important adapter in my dorm room, which was not that far away. So I just picked two people that I knew in the audience, the two craziest people I knew, and I asked them to run in place as fast as they could until I got back. And they did. And when I came back, like, they were both drenched in sweat. And the adapter ended up not working, so it was just a waste of time. But I guess that's not the real. The main way I did it was, I was doing a show in New York, and it was my first time like anyone went to a show of mine in New York, and it was crazy. I was like, wow, this is like what? I mean, it was probably like 40 people, but it was in this basement of this venue called the Apocalypse Lounge, and it was like the first show I was doing where people were like actually dancing and seemed to get it, and I didn't have to like trick them into liking it. And then the power blew on the breaker that the PA was on, but the light bulb still worked. So the lights were on, and they turned on the lights, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna take," and all of this other band's gear is in front of the box, so they're like, "It's gonna take us like 10 minutes." And I knew if we stopped, people would just go upstairs and start drinking and not come back down, and it would just be the end of the night. So I just started coming up with all these convoluted. I was like, make a circle, make a clearing, and I picked somebody, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna have a dance contest, and these are the rules." And I started like listing off these insane rules until the power came back on. And then eventually the power came back on for the PA, and we started the song. And I realized that even though it was like a floor show, everyone prior to that was looking in the same direction. Or once we started that dance contest, everyone was now looking towards the center of the room. It completely changed, the focal point of the performance and what the performance was about. It was no longer about me, pushing buttons or not being able to, even though the audience couldn't see, they were all facing the direction of where the performer was. Now the performer was in the center of the room, and it was constantly changing who the performer was. And I really liked that. I liked this like shift of being like, the audience is the performance. And after a long time, I started thinking exclusively like how the only performance, especially in like a standing room show. The audience is the performance. You can't have a performance without an audience. Otherwise, it's just like a really like narcissistic rehearsal. And when a performer thinks about an audience as a group, while audience members they don't think about themselves as a collective. They're individuals that happen to be in a room with a lot of other individuals. So when you play back and forth with that concept, when you turn an audience into a collective for themselves and you turn the performance around and now all of a sudden the audience is the performance, I feel like it changes your mindset a lot. Because we're always, in our every day-to-day life, no matter how like extremely radical libertarian you are, you're always part of this larger club, because we're all radical libertarians. You're always like a part of a larger collective, no matter how individualistic you are, you're attached to these larger groups. And I think playing back and forth at the idea of collective and individual and, shifting the line between where you go back and forth, and that can be fun.
Cool, that's great.
I forgot to breathe.
Anybody have any questions for Dan Decon? We have a microphone coming over to you right now. There it is.
Touching on the thing you just said, how do you think cell phones affect shows now versus when you first started in '02?
I'm very glad you asked. I think and this is going to sound crazy, but I think cell phones are like the new stage diving. And I say that because stage diving used to not exist. And if you were in the prior generations to stage diving, you were like, this sucks. Why are these idiots jumping on me? And maybe people still think that. But it's just a new addition to show. Like imagine, let's go back like, I don't know, to early rock and roll. You'd sit in chairs like this. And when the band was done, you'd clap. And then it turned into you'd sit in chairs and just scream as loud as you possibly could. And I'm sure people 10 years older were like, well, I can't hear anything this band is doing. Why are you screaming at the top of your lungs? And then that turned into standing. And people would be like, could you please sit down? They put out all these seats. Why are you standing? And then standing turned into mosh pits. And I'm sure mosh pits sucked if you were just like, I just want to watch Soundgarden. Can we please not smash into each other? I would just like to watch this show. And then that turned into jumping, literally just jumping into people and being like, can't we just mosh? This stage diving sucks. And I know it's a leap because it's a completely different format, but phones exist and they're not going to go away the same way that any of those other things weren't going to go away. And if you're 10 years old now and you're at a show and you have your phone, there's no way you're not going to use it. Do you know what I mean? So in 15 years, it's just going to be completely ubiquitous. It's every single person in the room is going to be like, yeah, I'm at the show. Oh, I'm at the show too. I came with you. This is great. All right. And performance is just going to have to change or adapt the same way that it did to like artificial sound, or when people would go to shows and they're like, well, you can't hear anything because everyone's screaming. They were like, well, what if we make like gigantic speakers? I don't know. Does that make any sense? Yeah. I don't know if it's right. I mean, right now, I do think it's like this awkward period of time where it's like, for some reason, people don't like it, and it's like, oh, but I had to look at someone's phone. Could you believe it? I was at a show and I had to look at someone look at a phone. It was just the worst. I saw their phone. I saw a little bit what they were looking at on their phone. It was terrible. Right in front of me. Took it right out. Their phone. And I know it's sort of like, when we go to a show, we like make it dark and we try to make it seem like we're like sneaking into like some like magical cave or something, but and it does sort of like take away from the magic of it. But I don't know. Magic's not real, dog. Let's get real. But I do also think that phones can be, we're going to do it hopefully in like 25 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. That there's new things you can do with phones. Like everyone in this room, let me rephrase, like most of the people in this room have this insanely powerful computer that's also a microphone and a speaker and a light and a screen. And incorporating these things into performance can really open up entirely new pathways for new art forms that have never existed before. So I'm sort of banking on it. So let's see how it goes.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about Dan Decon and his music before you head over to the stage?
No, I think we covered just about everything I've ever wanted to talk about.
Excellent. All right. Well, Well, thanks. So we're gonna take a little.
Oh, I remembered something.
Okay, good.
Even if you hate this show, I'm going to do a drastically different show on the 29th of February. Is that a day? The 29th? Is there a 29th this year? There is? 28th, cool. Yeah, that one. I'm going to do a show on the 28th in somewhere in this city. Chapel. Thank you so much for knowing what I should have known.
Excellent. Maybe it's a leap year? Is it a leap year? I don't know.
Is it a leap year? No, leap years are election years, right? Isn't that true? No? It's true. Don't listen to them. That's true.
Okay.
Every election year is a leap year.
It's good to know.
2 new days this year.
All right, so we're going to take a short break, and we all want you to go to the
Let's
bar.
just do this again.
We could do this at the end.
This took forever to set up. I'd love to just start. It's going to take forever to pack up, too. So.
All right, enjoy yourselves.
Cool. Thank you.